Hey, brother.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Okay, yourself.
What's going on?
Going on. So before I make a complete fool of myself, can you please pronounce your cool name?
It's Bjorn Leesson.
Bjorn Leesson. That's unique, eh?
Yep.
Yeah. What's the history with that? Is it cultural?
Yeah, it's Scandinavian. The old Norse method of naming was to take the father's name and add son
So
or daughter
you
to
like,
the end. Yeah.
yeah,
What's that now?
yeah. So is that where you're originally from?
No, I'm not. No, that's a lot of my genetics is from there, though.
Okay, nice, nice. That is unique, definitely. So thank you for accommodating me for 15 minutes before the actual time. I don't know if it's just me today, but like technology has just been like really, really slow. And like I'm just having, yeah, issue. Okay, so just some background on that. Over the last month, we have been having like major blackouts in South Africa. First, it was unpredictable. Now it's predictable where we know, okay, it's going to be at set times. So the power is going to go off like in just under, yeah, an hour. So I wanted to do it like, at least 15 minutes earlier. So at least we get an hour in for the
I
show.
got
So
you.
thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
but I
problem.
mean, the whole day, if it wasn't the Wi Fi, it was the laptop. Then the mic was giving me issues like, you know, just up and down the entire day. But yeah, man, let's make the best of it. So thanks for coming onto the podcast. Much appreciated.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. Let's thank Mickey for that. Mickey's connecting great people from all around the world with the show.
Yep.
Much respect for Mickey. Shout out to him. So yeah, before we get into your book and your storytelling and the awesome work you've been putting out, do you mind just sharing like a bit of background history, about yourself? I know you never set out in life to become an amazing author, but here you are today, killing it in the industry right now. So let's just, yeah, share some background history about that. Where it all started for you? Where did life actually start for you before
Oh,
you went
yeah,
into
no
story?
problem. Yeah, I was born here in South Carolina. I was born in Charleston area, and of course, Charleston's got a lot of history. A lot of history around that. I've always been interested in history, loved history. It never never transpired into a career though. I followed my grandfather and father in the industry, manufacturing, metal reclamation, things like that. And that's what I've always done just for, you know, surviving on. But I've always liked to write. Uh, been writing for many, many years. A lot of the writing, though, was more practical. It was technical writing, manuals, SOPs, things like that. Uh, Always tinkered around with
Okay.
creative writing. I just never really tried to do anything with it, just entertain myself more or less until I started this series, which was a pretty much a congregation of a bunch of different interests I have. I'm interested in just about everything. So there's something in everything that interests me, and I ended up kind of mashing them all together and made a story out of it. but but I've tried different stuff. Archeology volunteer, did stock car racing for a year or two with my dad a long time ago. Just anything that pops up, I like to dabble in it just to see, and that's kind of my life. Nothing super exciting, just a lot of different little things.
Well, it does seem exciting, and you're not a comfortable person, which is good.
Right,
There's
yeah.
no comfort zone here.
I guess it could be argued I get bored easy, and then I find something. But I
Yeah,
but I'm easily entertained, so it's a catch-22. I get bored, but I find something else pretty quick.
yeah, I can relate to that. But do you ever find yourself like starting something and never finishing it, like most
uh,
creators out there?
that's what's interesting about this book series is I've always started stories when I was dabbling in creative writing. I've always started stories, get to a certain point, decide I don't like it, and just shove it to the side and move on to something else. But this one didn't go that way. I'm finishing book 8 now, so the thought that I
Wow.
ever would have written that many novels is unheard of. I don't know what changed. It's just something about this particular story and these characters I've kind of brainstormed that just really held my attention. So it's unique for me because this is going on 3 years working with this story.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So, what's the average page count of your books?
Three. I'm not sure exactly. 350 to 400. It's they're about 100 and about an average 104,000 words a book. So they're full size novels. Yeah, they're big novels.
Wow. And 8 books till date, and I mean, you're not even close to finish as well.
Well, the main series is will end at book 7, the main part of the series, but there's spin-off books that are coming from the series. So all these little side characters that I've developed, I figured they have a story too. So I started, adding, kind of got away from the main protagonist is named Mariel. I kind of got away from her. Her story was told in the first 7 books. So now I'm grabbing it onto other characters, writing them as well. Yep.
Yeah. This is like similar to like how, I'm not sure if you follow like the Marvel series, the movies, how it starts with like the main figure and then it just branches off into Ant-Man, for example. And then there's a storyline about him and his journey and where he came from.
Oh yeah.
So that's that's the angle. I love that. I mean, it makes the whole, on the macro point of view, makes it, much more interesting. Let's learn about, who was this guy and who was that guy along the way.
I've always, like, even watching TV, watching movies, watching television series, I've always found the side characters more interesting than the main character. I always want to know more about the one they don't talk about a whole lot. Like, I wonder what his story is. He's got to have a good story, So that's kind of how this ended up happening. My main character, of course, love her to death. And enjoyed writing her very layered and in-depth story. But all these little side characters, I started just picking them out. They might have been mentioned 4 lines in one of the books. Now they've got a whole book for them. It's kind of the way I've always thought. So that's how this exploded into so many side stories and books and characters.
But I mean, like, besides having like a passion for branching out into the small characters from the main series, it also keeps your audience and your community engaged.
Right.
Which is a good business strategy as an author.
Yeah, I mean, it's also when I started writing and I wanted to, it's a fantasy story. So of course it's a little bit, there's wild parts of it, like the supernatural elements and things like that most people wouldn't say, okay, that's real life, but I tried to make it as realistic as possible and relatable as possible. So when people read it, they can kind of actually see it maybe unfold in real life. I didn't want to make it so far out there that people are like, okay, this is a wild fantasy story. I wanted to dance on that line between fantasy and reality. And that's what I strove to do. And I think I accomplished it pretty well. Seems to have done.
Yeah. Well, let's look at, the history of fantasy, and the fine line between fiction and non-fiction. For the average mind, I can understand where they would say or comment to say, no, this can't be real. This doesn't happen in real life. But how sure are we? Can we really be sure about that? That this is not reality? That there's not another dimension or world out there within the universe, which is huge, that this doesn't happen? Like, how many times, like, I have watched the movie, and this is before, like, I got awakened, and I thought to myself, that can't be real. But then as you see how the world unfolds, you're like, this actually can be real. It does exist somewhere out there.
Yeah.
I believe that, like,
oh, absolutely. I think as human beings, and this is part of one of my interest is the mysteries of the universe type stuff, all the mysteries that we haven't solved and we're trying to solve, but also the fact as a human race, we think we know, I'm going to throw a number. We think we know 15-20% of reality. I think we know about 1%. Because we always prove ourselves wrong. I mean, give it 10 years, we'll prove ourselves wrong. So it's just it's comical that we think we know so much and we really don't. So even these fantasy stories that all of us that authors are writing, give it time. It'll end up being true probably if you give it enough time.
I agree with you. We don't know it all. Even though we think we do, as humans, or how ignorant can we be to think that, we're the only species out there? I mean, there's millions of species out there. So, like, yeah, I mean, this is where I come in to say, authors such as yourself, like, I look up to, because you're awakening people, you're taking them into worlds that they may think is the unknown, but it actually is the known. So history plays a huge role in your storytelling.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, is there any specific part in history that fascinates you the most?
No, it's every culture and every era. I just anything in the past fascinates me. I'm not sure why, but I mean, to give an example, in this series, it starts out in the Viking era. The Norse exploration era, the Viking era, 800s AD. It skips forward to 1891 in Montana at one point, and then a lot of it takes place in World War II. So that's the 1940s, and that's throughout the world. It's not just in one spot. The setting changes, or there's a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Then future books that are coming. In fact, the one that launches tomorrow is back to the Viking era again, and it's a different character. It's still connected with Mariel and her destiny, but it's one of her a sidekick, her best friend, her greatest supporter, however you want to describe her. But she's another strong female that goes back to Scandinavia and has to perform her destiny, her task that intertwine with Mariel's. Then the last two books, 6 and 7, which are scheduled to release in the future, those take place in 1860s New York City. So it's there's a little bit of everything in it, and future state. I imagine I'll probably hit the Middle Ages in Europe. I mean, there's a lot of different. If you're into history, you'll like it because there's a lot of different stuff. We hit a lot of places and a lot of times.
There's so much to learn from history, right? I mean, it's like, when I come across individuals who, think the world only started when they were born,
Right.
But in order to make sense of the present, you have to go back to understand how it unfolded. We can't be so blinded, by what we've been taught or how we've been brainwashed or what society has told us.
Exactly. Yep.
There's much more actually to it. So your series is not the typical series where I can just like start in the middle and I'm gonna know what's up. I have to start at book one.
Right. It's best to start with one and go on through, but they're written in such a way. 1, 2, and 3 you kind of do have to read in order because it's the core of the story. Books 4, 5, 6, and 7, they're the background that feeds into what happens in 1, 2, and 3. So 1, 2, and 3 is the core. That's all about Mariel and her destiny. This cosmic battle between light and dark, and saving the world of the living from the evil that's beyond. But the rest of the books are other characters and other stories that show how all of this in 1, 2, and 3 began. So it's like you're saying, you don't just start at a spot and say this is the beginning of history. That's not. You can't do that. There's always more. There's always something that fed into something else. So that's kind of how this series exploded, because originally it was going to be one book, then it turned into 2, then it turned into 3. And then I said, well, I got to write more to explain why 1, 2, and 3 happened. So I did 4, 5, 6, and 7. And
And
then 8, the 8th book I just finished a draft for. It's going to be the first of the spinoff books. So it's not going to really be about Mariel or the battle between light and dark. It's 8 is actually going to be more of a historical crime drama, I guess you could say, because it takes place in American Civil War era New York City, but it's the crime, it's crime family. So if you would imagine Al Capone mafia, but happening 100 years earlier, then that's what that book is about. So it's there's going to be a little bit of everything, because I'm sure I'll hit other genres in the future too with this. So it's going to be fun.
So Rune of Revenge, that's your book that was released today.
Tomorrow, yeah, it comes out tomorrow.
We're getting released tomorrow. Tomorrow. Okay. So, briefly, we don't want to give it all away, to the audience. We actually want them, to read the series. So, like, briefly, as much as you can, let's go through the storyline, of the book. you know.
Okay, no problem. So in books 1, 2, and 3, it focuses primarily on Mariel, the Dokkrsdottir. She's the protagonist. She's a very unusual Viking female warrior. First, she's a female warrior, which right now at this time, historical female warriors is not that uncommon to us. But 10, 12 years ago, when I first started really pecking away at putting together something about this, it was not heard of very often. It was, Vikings were blonde hair, blue eyed males. That's who the Vikings were. Well, no, there were females as well. And Mariel also is even more dynamic than that because she's also half Northern African and half Scandinavian. So she has a very distinctive look that's unusual from what you would consider a Viking to be. And she's female. And then you throw on top of it all of her personality quirks. I gave her tons and tons of quirks. She's just a really strange individual in a good way, but a strange individual. And then the icing on the cake is she has a supernatural power within her as well that can be extremely destructive or extremely good. It just depends on how she controls it. And that is primarily one of the major story arcs in the first 3 books is her gaining control of this power in order to defeat the dark from overrunning the living world and eliminating mankind, basically. So saying all that, at the end of her time in the Viking Age, her biggest supporter and sidekick was another female Viking warrior named Ingryd Stonesplitter. Now she's almost the opposite of Mariel. Mariel is very hyper, full of hyper energy and very impulsive. Ingryd is the opposite. She's very militaristic, your stereotypical militaristic warrior of the Viking Age, and she's very private. But she's a contradiction because she's 6'6" and is built like a wrestler and looks very masculine. So she's an intimidating individual. So no one really gets close to her because she's so intimidating looking, but she's actually very, very gentle and kind hearted. But she's also the greatest warrior of her age too. She takes, when she goes into battle, she takes 3 or 4 opponents at a time. I mean, that's just the way she's wired. But, after her and Mariel separate in the living world, I'll say it that way. They do meet up again, but in the living world, they separate through a series of events. She ends up going back to Scandinavia from where they were, which I won't say what that was, but where they were, she went back to Scandinavia and she has a whole laundry list of destinies she has to complete, taking back her home village and creating this launching point for these events to happen so that Mariel is able to complete her destiny in the future. So I'm not sure. I might have left too much out. Wow. But it's a very complicated, very layered story. And it's hard to say too much and not give it away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but it sounds definitely like a fascinating journey for both parties. So when it comes to your character development, how do you go about that? Like when it comes to the characteristics, the name choices.
Oh, that's the best part of writing, in my opinion. I love character development. Every character I develop, even the minor ones, I try to give them their unique personality, their own little quirks and odd behaviors that make them into unique and individual. Like I was saying, Ingryd's very private, but she's enormous, but very private. She also has a power within her. It's not like Mariel's, though. Hers is foresight. Ingryd's family throughout history, members of her family have had foresight, so they can not see the future, but they have instincts about the future, and that helps guide them through this whole adventure that they're on. The way I do it though is I try to take a little bit of everybody I've ever met and sprinkle it amongst all these characters, and then take a little bit of myself and sprinkle it in there, because we all have our own little ticks and unique characteristics, and I like to try to weave that into the characters. Some of them are, humorous. Some are just, sour people. It's just a little bit of everything, try to take the life, in real life and just write it into your characters.
Yeah, which is what I was going to mention next. Like as an author, do the characters actually resemble who you are as a person? Is the villains as well?
Yeah. I like to say there's a little bit of Bjorn into every character, and there's a little bit of all the people I know in every character. It's just I don't replicate anybody exactly. You know, in other words, my friend Fred, I don't write him as a character exactly as he is. You know, I spread it out, but like a recipe, I guess, a recipe with no directions. But it's fun to do. I mean, it's just fun to watch these characters unfold. All the little ticks and like you know, as I'm writing, I might have somebody make a certain line. I say that's kind of interesting. That I like that line, so I'll have that become a reoccurring, almost a joke throughout the book, where they use that line over and over, or something related to that behavior resurfaces again and again. One character in a future book that's not out yet in the series, but her thing is when she travels by train, or travels in general, chain carriage, whatever. If she's with somebody, when she's traveling, she just has this unusual habit of ignoring them. She'll just read a book, and they try to talk to her, and she just ignores them and reads the book. That's one of her ticks. But when she's not traveling, she'll talk to them. So it's just kind of a weird little personality trait she has. But I try to do that for each character, give them a little something different about them, you know.
Yeah. Ah, man, this is really fascinating, you know, with your character development. Like, trying to think, like, you know, okay, definitely I can't get to the answer, like, but how do you come up with it, you know? Which of you've explained, you know, but I'm thinking, sure.
Yeah,
This is so,
it's hard to explain. It is hard to explain because it's very by the
yeah.
seat of my pants. You know, I as I'm writing is how it develops. There's no really, I don't have a lot of thought ahead of time how I'm going to make this character in general. There are a few exceptions to that. One character, the same character that ignores people when she travels, she comes from a crime family, like I said, in 1860s New York, and her father's a very inhuman, very cold, inhuman individual, and that's partly how she ends up in the lifestyle she's in. And he runs a company, and he's just a very hard person. So I kind of developed him ahead of time before I started writing, because I decided that he was going to, the way he runs the family is the reason the character Josephine ends up being the way she is with her personality. Now over time, she does kind of reverse and become more on the good side, but throughout her whole story, she's one of those characters where you don't know if she's a good guy or not by the end of it. She does a good thing. She serves a good purpose, but was she a good person? Don't know. Don't really have an answer, because she did bad things and she did good things. But part of the reason for that, just like we all are, we're all products of our environment, right? We're products of our environment, our experiences, and hers were not good. So naturally, her behaviors were not always good either.
Yeah.
All part of character development.
Yeah. No, you've done a great job. Honestly, you've done a great job with how you just brought this whole series together. And now you're talking about like all the future projects. So like how much planning actually goes into like each book? If you had to reference it to like research.
It's that's kind of hard to answer, because I've researched history so much before I started writing these books that a lot of the knowledge is just in my head. I don't claim to be an expert in anything, but I do have bits of knowledge of a lot of things, and I build off of that. As I go, there are times where I do have to look things up and research them to make sure that I'm on the right track and that nobody's, I'm not too far off base with something that's supposed to be factual. It's a good mix of both. A lot of it's just already there, and some of it I have to research, but I can't quantify the amount of research because it's drawn from so far back in my own experiences that I can't I can't count it up in hours or anything, obviously. But I would say that short answer would be a lot, but it wasn't because of the book series. It was just stuff I've already had in my head from previous research.
It's stuff you like, or was material that you already consumed while you were busy doing SOPs, it was already there.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
It was like a hobby, I love history. I'm gonna, read about history, even though I never know at the time I'm going to become an author that's going to write about history or implement history in my works.
Right.
And here we are. You were manifesting as you were moving along in life. You just didn't know what the angle was at the time. And then boom, the spark came on. Okay, I can convert all of this into a fascinating series, into fascinating books. The beauty of life.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Well, exactly. That's life. You know, you take seemingly many unrelated things, right? You put them together and you weave them into a story. So that's the fun part of it, is taking all these things that seem to be unrelated and show how they're all connected. Because I'm sure you're familiar with the butterfly effect, where if
yeah,
a
yeah,
butterfly flaps its wings in Africa, it creates a hurricane, or however the thing is worded. But the whole thing is, everything is somehow connected to everything else. It might be 37,000 steps away, but it's all connected. And that's kind
yeah,
of what I
yeah.
did with the series. Not 37,000 steps, but everything's connected. Anything that happens on page 12 of book 2, is related to something that happens in book 7 at the end of the story. It all connects. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I imagine real life is. That's how I imagine real life. I'm not sure if everyone does, but
Well, yeah. I mean, that's how I imagine real life as well. Like it's a usual. It's magic. How many times do we find ourselves in a situation where we're consuming material or we're doing something, but it makes no sense at all in present time? Why am I doing this?
mm-hmm.
You know, or why did a certain piece of, let's just say a link got sent to me via a marketer. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. You went in, you got hooked, you learned what it was about. And as you said, like 7, 10 years down the line, it's all okay. That's why that had to happen to me, or that's why I had to learn that, or that's why I had to read that, because now it's actually manifesting this book in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Magic.
Exactly.
It's
Yep.
magic. It's life. So I mean, to the audience out there, to the creators out there, if you're doing something, in this present moment in time that doesn't make sense at all, or you enjoy reading such a piece of material, touches the heart, continue to do so. You just don't know where it's going to end up.
Right. That's a
Yeah.
fact. Yep. I mean,
And-
what
and-
when you think it might be now, it's not now, it's later, or vice versa, right? Yeah. Exactly. I understand.
So, I mean, this could be like, the podcast is also, education for up and coming independent creators out there. This is a learning point. This is a learning point. Your work, your life story, your books, is educational content, depending how you're taking it in.
Right. Yeah, you make a good point. I know I've been asked several times, well, what is the message? So there isn't a message, it's a story. I'm just telling a story. However, every reader will get a message. It's a very layered and complicated story. So there's a lot of people and a lot of that art story arches. It's not just one. There's several major story arches and there's smaller ones. It's all sprinkled throughout. So as you read it, if you try to look at it through the prism of real life, you're going to find a message. Everyone's going to find a message. There is some spirituality involved, and it's not just Christianity. It involves Native American beliefs, Muslim. It hits a little bit of everything. So as you read it, you will eventually find your own message. Of course, the main message being light versus dark, and where would you stand in this situation. But it also shows, we as human beings, we love to try to make everything black and white. We try to make it really simple. Nothing is simple in life. If you dig
Yeah.
around it enough, there's several layers and there's so much gray area that you have to there's the answer is not simple to be on the side of right. I mean, you have to really think about it, and you have to really dig in your own heart and figure out, where do I want to be in this, and is this the right thing to do. And
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
I guess, if there's a message, it's that, but as far as any sort of agenda, nah, I didn't. It's just a story that I started writing and it exploded into 8 books.
Well, I mean, it's a story that I feel can really inspire and motivate a lot of people out there.
I think so. Especially if the reader starts reading the series and they pick out a certain character that they really like, because I purposely tried to make them so realistic and in depth and unique, that they might find some connection to that character in their own life that helps them see something different. So there's always that chance. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a hidden message that I also, as an individual, I got my own story. You know, I shouldn't just take it as it's black and white, and this is what I was told to do. No, there's more to it. You have to go down your
Oh,
path, and
absolutely.
you have to live
Yep.
your story. go on your own little adventure and see where it takes you. What's the worst that could
Absolutely.
happen?
Yep.
You know?
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Always never be scared to dig into it. I mean, you might not like what you find, but it gives you a realistic view of what's going on or what has happened, so, and that's how you make your decisions going forward. So never be scared to dig into stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%. Take the risk.
Yeah.
See what happens. You know, if it works out, cool. If it doesn't work out, what's to learn from it?
Right.
What's the
Exactly. Yep.
blessing in disguise from that
Yep.
experience?
Very true.
So yeah. On the topic of artificial intelligence and how it's expanding and how it's growing in the creative space, what's your take on it as an author?
I think I heard it best from a musician. Actually, I was on a show a while back where I was one guest as an author, and there was another guest on it. It was a musician, and plays the guitar. He had several different forms of music he plays, and he's really good. It was enjoyable to listen to him. And they asked him that question, and he said AI doesn't bother him, because they're curious about AI generated music competing with his human music he's making, and
Yeah.
I thought he had a good answer. He said, "Well, if someone's looking for, let's take a hamburger. If somebody wants to go to McDonald's and get, a cheap hamburger for a few bucks and it's something to put in your stomach, that's fine. But if they want a really, really good hamburger, AI won't give them that. So it's the same thing with creative. Yes, AI is going to write a bunch of books, flood the market with tons of books, but it's just hopeful over time that people realize a computer generated story doesn't have the human element. It just doesn't. It can't. It's by definition, it's a computer. It can't give all the same emotion. As an example, if you're an artist or you're an author or any other type of creative endeavor, you've got to have passion for what you're doing. Otherwise, your target audience is going to see you don't have passion for it, and they're not going to like it. And that's how I view AI going. Artwork, music, and literature. If it's generated by a computer, there's going to be no passion, and people aren't going to like it. So, in the end, I hope it works itself out. I think it's going to be a heck of a mess in the meantime for people that are legitimately trying to be creative and get themselves out in the market and in front of people. It's going to be a mess when computers start flooding the market with stuff, but just something we're going to have to deal with, I guess. I don't see it being stopped. We just got to kind of have faith it's going to work out.
So we live in a world that is driven by feelings, not by pragmatic thinking. We are driven by feelings. So I agree with that statement, and my take on AI is that, look, it is the future. It's not something that's trending now and it's going to disappear tomorrow. There's major investments that have been put on it, even from the big publishing companies, from the big record labels. They invest. They can criticize it, but they just much invested in it as well. Okay, it's playing it on both ends. It's all about bottom line. So yes, AI can't give you that emotion, but there's also like a yet, because it just keeps learning more and more from us.
Right.
It can't give people, that feeling or that motivation or that inspiration. So I get where, musicians are coming from, being a musician, myself, and being involved in the music myself. But also feel, there's still a big question mark there. We can't just, judge it yet. That can't give people that emotional feeling yet.
Right.
Because it just keeps learning and learning. And the more we upload our content online in any way or form, it's learning from that daily.
I still just want to. I have to hang on to the belief that humans have a spark a computer will never recreate, and I don't know how that's going to be exactly, but I just carry on and see what happens.
Yeah. It's a gray area. It's a gray area of what can it become. It's like I want people to have an organic feeling with your work. I want to release organic music where there's a storyline behind it, where there's an emotion behind it. There's a reason why I'm releasing this track right now in this period of my life. I want that. But there's still, that big question mark. Okay, what I see and what I view happening out there, I also have to prepare myself for it as well. I can't just turn a blind eye to be like, okay, let me just, keep releasing organic music, thinking, okay, it's going to sustain my career in the next 5 to 10 years. Because then I'm just like being ignorant about it. I still have to keep like my, foot in that lake there to see what can come. Let me play around with it. Let me see what I can do at the moment. Let me research on it. Let me keep myself updated with it to sustain myself in the future. So it's like on both ends, I'm there. I'm all about being real. I'm all about being organic. I'm all about emotions, but I also have to be vigilant about what's to come.
Yep,
I don't know.
exactly.
Does that make sense? Does it make sense?
No, I understand 100%. You can't just pretend it's not coming. You got to make your adaptations as you have to. To me, I just don't follow it close enough. So I mean, I just carry on doing what I'm doing and have
Yeah.
if there's a plan B to be had, I'm fairly crafty. I'll figure it out.
But there's an important thing to be learned with you as an author is to build your community while you got that chance. Build your community. Stop looking for more. If you have enough, let's just say, for example, I'm going to throw a ball figure out there. Say there's 1,000 people that support your work, they support your brand, they love your series, and they're going to continue to support you. Focus on the 1,000 people as a creative. Stop chasing the 2,000, the 3,000, the 5,000. Stop making that a priority. Focus on
Right.
the 1,000. Build a solid community. Whether it be a Facebook group, a Patreon channel, wherever you feel comfortable, and build on that community because those people are always going to have your back.
Oh no, you're absolutely right, 100% correct. The way I've always said this before, people have asked, well, what made you want to get into writing? One thing I've always made clear was I never got into it with the belief I'm going to become a millionaire. That is not the reason I'm doing this. I'm doing it because, like I said before, I'm shocked that I stuck with something this long to create 8 books in a series, and it's enjoyable, and I just want to get as many people as I can to read it. I didn't go into this with like charts and graphs about how much money I plan to make or how many movies I think are going to happen. Nothing like that. If any of that happens, it's wonderful, but that's not my goal. My goal is just to get it out there as many people as I can and get honest feedback. If it's 10 people, if it's 10,000, whatever that number is, and exactly what you said, and whoever does respond, take care of them, interact with them, be as personable as you can with them, and that's where a lot of your feedback's going to come from anyway. You got reviewers. A lot of times reviewers have kind of their own agenda about things. So the best feedback you can get is from just your average Joe reader. And if it's 10, if it's 10,000, whatever it is. But I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
When people set their goals so high, that all it does is create a lot of, it just discouraging, it just discourages you after a while. Think how many authors there are. There's millions of authors, millions of books out every year, and you're competing with all of them. So the idea that I'm going to go out there and within a year, I'm going to be, Stephen King, that's not going to happen, or not likely to happen. To just have realistic goals and roll with it. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. You're driven by passion. Your heart is in the right place. And that's what matters most. Everything else after that is going to fall into place. Natural.
Exactly. Yep.
Universal language. That's labeled it there. When I look at the creative space, okay, and I'm going to reference the music industry and how that's evolving and this new era of streaming 2.0. So I'm going to use the example of, okay, now you got Spotify, for example, and you're paying $10, whatever, for a certain package to have this library of millions of tracks out there. And then now let's look at the writing part of the industry. Okay, we got Amazon. Now if you got Amazon Unlimited, okay, you're paying $10 to have this library of millions of ebooks that are out there. But there's going to be 2.0 is also going to be linked, to Amazon, where, okay, now you can pay an extra $5, and now you're going to have access to this exclusive content, from the author themselves. That's now where we need to be focusing as creatives, no matter where or which branch you fall under. So building that community is so important for all the listeners out there, independent authors out there who are still attempting to find their feet. Take what you've gathered from what you learn from authors such as yourself, but now start also building your community as well. Make that a priority, because that is going to define your career over the next 5 years. My take on it.
No, I agree 100%. Yep.
So with regards to publishing, are you self-published or do you fall under a publisher?
I'm self-published. I tried to. I'll just be honest about it. The traditional publishing avenue is so ridiculously overcomplicated. You have to go find an agent to help you find an agent to help you even contact the publisher. I decided I work a full-time job in industry. I don't have time. I don't have time for another full-time job with all this. So I tried to publish the first two myself. I don't have enough knowledge, and that didn't work out well. So I ended up hiring publicists and marketers to help me help an independent author such as myself to get going. And they got me on the right track. So things are doing better now. But I know people, funny. I don't want to steer anybody off of trying to do it traditionally. I just feel like it's almost a tidal wave against the author. I think you're better off at least I felt like I was better off just trying it myself with hired assistants, of course, but do it myself and just see where it goes. I feel like you have to almost surrender too much of yourself to get published by one of the big five. So that's my take on it. I mean, a lot of people might disagree.
I agree with you fully. I agree with. Let's just say that the traditional way of doing things is kind of outdated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To all the publishers listening, no offense to you, okay? But as a mainstream publisher now, and we do see it happening, they're adapting, okay? They're adapting to where this is all going. They're losing market shares each month, quarter, year unfolds. So if you're not going to adapt, then, you're not really going to be relevant. And what made me laugh, with what you said, hire an agent to find another agent. All these middlemen, we don't need them any longer.
Right.
We don't. It's good to have a publicist, yes. It's good to have marketers who are going to market your work. Cool. 100%. I agree with you. Have those people who are going. But as far as putting my work together and getting it out to market, I can do it myself. It's doable.
Right.
It's doable. With regards to editing, do you outsource editors, or you just go with your natural flow? You check it out yourself, and you have software that does it for you.
No, I do have an editor. After I tried it myself, the first two books, I tried to release myself and realized, this is probably not the best way to do this. I did hire an editor because my formatting originally was very from the technical writing aspect. It's a whole different format. So I wasn't writing in a creative format, and I had to hire Angela Flores, my editor, to help me guide me in the right direction on that. But she ended up helping with developmental side too. So it ended up being a good collaboration, and I don't regret that at all. She's been the editor on all 8 of, well, the 7 so far, and then the future 8th book. So I definitely have an editor. I'm glad I do suggest that for everybody. Everybody should do that. Absolutely.
Okay, so since you suggest an editor for all, out of for educational purposes, so what type of deals are set up when it comes to editors? Is it editors get paid per book, or is there royalty linkage to it?
I think most of them are by word, so it's a word count thing. If you
word count,
word count. So of course, the longer the book, of course, the more the word count or the charge is going to be. That's been my experience. I'm sure there's other ways that they handle that, but that's been my experience with it.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. So how would you, as an independent author now, okay, of course, you're going to compare, but once the final book comes back, now your words go into the 400 per book. Do you read the entire copy that comes back from the editor before you say yes or no?
Yeah, the way I've been doing it, really, what's suggested, they always suggest, is you send it to the editor for the first edit, and then there's usually a round of editing. There might be 2 or 3 other sessions where they have to go back through it again after you make changes, the suggested changes. Then there's a final proof. So the cost can add up, but I took some shortcuts on that. My editor felt like the quality of the manuscript that I originally sent was pretty good already. It just needed some polishing. And if I did the polish myself, I could just go back and do a good, slow, solid proofread on my own. So I was getting by. I've been getting by on one round of editing. That's not what they suggest doing, but it's the cost-effective way to do it. And so far, it seems to have been working pretty well. And this is her saying it. I'm not bragging on me. This is her saying it, but she says that each one I've sent her has been pretty solid on its own, so it doesn't need a lot of work. So that's a benefit. Now, if you're the type of writer that just blasts through and I got to just get everything on paper and then we'll work it out later, then it's going to require a lot more rounds of editing.
Yeah. I guess, what, each author is unique. Each one develops their own way of how they want to go about it. And you just, as an author in this day and age, you just need to do what's best for you, not what the next person is doing or what has made, the next author successful with their work before they take it out to market.
Yep.
Do what, resonates with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody's different. So you might be the one that's rough draft is the finished product. I don't think that's likely, but you could be. I'm not that guy, but someone might be.
Yeah. Exactly. Do what works for you. Do what works for you as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
End of the day is, in building that community and in building that intimacy with your audience, my crowd is not going to be your crowd. So do what works for your set crowd. If I write a fantasy novel now, there's no guarantee that your audience or your readers is going to love how I'm writing or love my storyline. I need to find my audience, who's digging me right now, who wants to roll with me. And that's who I need to focus on.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
100%. So your future projects are on the way. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got a new book that will come out in May as well.
Yep, that's the 5th in the series outside the Thalsparr series. That one, it actually has Ingryd and Mariel, the two characters I've already discussed earlier. They're both in that one, but with another one of those obscure characters that I drew out of the first book, named Lord Wulfdred. He's a Saxon lord that figures heavily into the story as well, and it's a little less action. The first 4 books are heavy action, a lot of battle sequences, things like that, in all eras of history. 5 is where things get a little different. I branched into a little bit different style of writing. It's political intrigue. So there's not as much action, but there's a lot more mental, cognitive type things you have to work through on this one. It's not one side against the other in battle. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
And this is a lot more about how something happened in the first book. The first book, Mariel and Ingryd leave Scandinavia and start a settlement in Britain. Well, what we know is Britain now. At the time, it was just called the Saxon lands. And they have to live alongside the Saxons, who are not their friends because they have raided the Saxons before. So this was a political deal struck to try to keep the raiders off the island, is what it boils down to. Figuring if there's a settlement full of Norse here, then the Vikings won't attack us. So that was why it was allowed. But of course, there's a lot of the powerful and amongst the Saxons are not happy about this. So there's a lot of backstabbing and political intrigues going on. And poor Mariel and Ingryd are caught in the middle because Mariel is crafty and she is politically minded in a way, but these higher games of politics the High Lords are playing, that's out of her realm. She doesn't really understand what's going on, what's really happening that's about to bite her. And
Yeah.
Ingryd is a warrior trainer, so she's not involved in politics. She ignores all that. And Lord Waldred acts on their behalf. He sees the promise of this settlement, and he wants to see it succeed, even though he is a Saxon himself. But he's also playing for his own benefits and his own agendas as well. So all this stuff is swirling around, and ends in book 1 with the settlement being destroyed, and that's when Ingryd goes back to Scandinavia and starts her book. And I'll just give it away because it's book's been out a while now. Mariel dies a couple times. She that's part of this mysterious power that she has, but she dies in this when the settlement's destroyed. That's how her and Ingryd are separated. But Lord Waldred moves on from this and ends up playing a huge part in Ingryd's story in the book that comes out tomorrow. So it's all like I said, it's all intertwined and interwoven together. It bounces around in out of chronological order a little bit. I apologize for that, but it's written in such a way it slowly reveals stuff. So it's not like just a flood of what happened. You go back a little bit more, then you see a little bit more, then you see a little bit more, and it all starts to fall into place.
Man, this is definitely something that you have to start from page 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a few people that have sped read through the books and they're lost. I'm like, you can't speed read through these. You've got to read it all. You've got to read it all because every line relates to something else. And if you miss something, then you're lost later on. So it's something you got to really you got to stay involved.
Yeah. It's like you have to sit down in a quiet space, lock the doors, lock the windows, put your phone off, and read. You know what I mean? There can be no distractions here.
You definitely got to pay attention to what's going on, because it's all intertwined somehow.
I mean, generally in life itself, you have to pay attention to what's going on all the time.
Yep, exactly.
Stop getting distracted. Okay, so I mean, your new book will be out tomorrow. So what's like your pre-ritual when that happens?
Well, tomorrow I go to work, and then in the evening, we're having a little what's called a launch party. My publicist does these. We go on and do it. She has a podcast that's published in various places, and we. I wish I knew exactly where to tell you to find them, but I'm not sure at this point. But she's good at it. She's really good at it. But I'll have my author usually shows up on there, and my editor shows up, and her and I kind of kick back and forth about how we've collaborated on this series. A lot of times there's some other authors that Mickey also represents that I've kind of gotten to know through Mickey, and they'll show up and we just kick around what the books are about and all the fun of being an author, kind of like you and I are doing right now. It's a fun experience. It's nice to meet new people in the industry like yourself. It's just nice to meet some new faces and hear new experiences, and maybe I can impart something on somebody else, or they can impart something on me that'll help us all. So it's fun.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you there. I mean, you're doing a great job. You're really doing a great job. I just want to say that, from me to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Your work is really intriguing. It's fascinating. I mean, wow. Just wow. I'm still overwhelmed, with how you put this all together, like it's still like having a full-time job, doing it, like no excuses allowed. Wow. You should be proud of yourself, honestly proud of yourself. And I'm glad that you've taken, this journey for yourself. Given that it wasn't something you set out to do, but you made it so extraordinary for the world.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely took on a life of its own, and I'm glad it did. I don't regret anything. I think it's all been fun and exciting.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution to the creator space. And there's so much for, other creators to just learn from your story alone and from your book alone.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So where can people find you online? Like, where are you rolling?
Yeah. Well, you can find me on Facebook, Bjorn Leesson, but the best place to go is my website, where it's kind of a hub that takes you to whatever you need to know about the series. It tells you about the books, where you can buy them, all that good stuff, releases, news, and that's Thalsparr.com's THALSPARR.com, and that's where the hub of information is, so to speak, is located.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love, the one thing with authors is they love their websites. They love the websites. That's where we are. You want to know us, you want to know our books, you want to know our content. That's where you're going to find us. Facebook, Instagram, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm not overly in tune with social media. I do have a Facebook that I do put stuff on Facebook quite a bit. But all the other Twitters and X's and everything else, I don't have any of that. I haven't worked in that most into the modern social media world yet. I'm sure one day I'll have to, but so far I haven't.
Just give it to Mickey or Amy, You handle it, That's for you.
Oh, generally speaking, that's what happens. Yeah, they kind of handle it for me because they know I'm pretty much inept at that. But
no, but look, I mean, you have a great team. You have a great team when you're working with.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yep.
So it's a win-win. I mean, from all the authors that have come in under Mickey and Amy, like all are doing an amazing job.
They do that. I'd be utterly lost without them.
Yeah. It's like, like when you work with people, at times not all relationships are, good. There can be grievances, or there can be disputes, disagreements.
Oh, no doubt. When you were asking about editors earlier, funny story. One of I call my online author buddy named Russell Little. He writes murder mysteries is what he
I've had him on the podcast.
Yes,
he's a cool guy. He's cool.
Russell's awesome, but it was funny. It was funny. What had me laughing the most was when he was talking about his relationships with his editors. I don't know if he did this with you, but he says basically he has a love-hate relationship with his editors, all of them. He loves to hate them. And we were on the same show, and he asked, kind of imply, well, what do you think? I'm like, my editor happened to be on also, or was watching. She wasn't on the show, but she was watching. I said, I love my editor. I've never had a problem with my editor. I don't know where you're coming from with that. Then he found out she was watching, so he's like, that's why you're being nice. Like, no, Russell, I'm being nice because I actually mean it. I actually do get along with my editor. He doesn't, apparently.
No, he did mention that when we had a chat. Now he's a phenomenal guy, and he does make.
He's a great fellow.
But I just love how open he is about it. He's open about it. This is it. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. This is it.
That's one thing I love about him. You don't have to guess what he's thinking because he's going to tell you, and that's fine with me. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Nah, he's an awesome guy. Much love to Russell. We gave love to Mickey. We gave love to Amy just a while ago. Now, Russell, we're giving love to you as well.
That's right.
Shout out. But Bjorn, I said it right, Bjorn.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
Bjorn, right? There we go. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on, and just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Man, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed being on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, keep going. I mean, I don't know. Outside the series, are you going to expand? As you said, you're interested in other genres. You don't get comfortable. You get bored easily. 8 books in, branching out into different characters as well. Like, this is going to continue and continue. Like, this is never going to stop. Yeah, there's no way to keep going. Yeah,
you're right.
You need to find like an apprentice down the line soon who's going to continue with this.
Yep.
Definitely. But thank you. And once again, keep doing what you're doing. Much love and respect, man.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Okay. Bye.
Right, take it easy.
You too. Bye.